What's up, guys? So with the PC gaming community continuing to grow and so many people looking to get started on a budget, I wanted to take a look at one of the best options for securing some really good performance at a nice low cost. And forget about, the NZXT starter PC, the Dell G5, all of those computers. You're really going to see a bottom line price of around $700 for some okay components. We're talking an i3-9100 and a 1650 in the NZXT starter PC. We're looking at a i3-10100 and a GTX 1650 Super in the Dell G5. So some okay components. You're really going to be lucky to hit 60 FPS with a $700 computer. So what we're looking at is an HP Pavilion mini tower from a couple years back with an i5-7400, so 4 cores and 4 threads. The exact same spec really as the i3-9100 and the NZXT starter PC. And we got this computer for $150 on eBay. Going through the full system, we have a single stick of 8GB DDR4 memory. So similar to the NZXT starter PC and the Dell G5, we're only going to be able to run in single channel, but we can always upgrade down the line for $20-30, get another stick of 8GB RAM, and we'll be all set. We're also looking at a 240 gig NVMe SSD for Windows and some other nice programs, and then a 1TB hard drive. We have, in terms of front I/O, this is a really nice computer. We have a USB Type A, a USB Type C, and an SD card reader. So that is all really nice as well. And it all comes in this nice small form factor case. So we're looking at around a 15-liter case. So really in like that mini ITX PC category per se. But the real downfall with this system is the 180 watt power supply. So to really bring this computer to life and turn it into that high performing gaming PC that's going to outperform the NZXT starter PC and the Dell G5 is to first swap out the 180 watt power supply for a 500 watt power supply from Thermaltake. And the piece de resistance, we're going to be adding a GTX 1660 Super, a mini ITX version from Gigabyte that is going to really bring this PC to life and really put it in the category of like an NZXT starter PC Plus, which is a $900 computer. So I can't wait to get started on this build. But before we do, I wanted to show you guys this. So only 1% of you guys who have watched my videos in the last 28 days have subscribed to the channel. If we could get that number up to like 20%, we'd be sitting at almost 5,000 subscribers. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming build or upgrade videos, as well as any of the tech reviews coming to the channel soon. But let's get started with the upgrades. And first things first is going to be installing our 500 watt power supply into our HP. So getting started with our power supply upgrade, we have a Thermaltake 500 watt 80 plus certified power supply. So we'll get this thing out of the box. And as you can see, it's not modular or anything like that. You're gonna have some ketchup and mustard cables. And being inside of the HP, you're not really ever gonna see any of this stuff. So that is a nice feature as well. So now that we have it out of the box and out of the packaging, a nice little setup. We do have the 120mm fan, which will actually draw air out of the case for the most part. So this will almost act as a secondary exhaust fan, which should help with some temps. So in order to get this installed, let's take off our side panel. And with the side panel off, we will reveal what we have to deal with. So now with the side panel off, you can really get a good look inside of the case. We can see our SSD, we can see our hard drive. So we can see the CPU cooler. It's not a really beefy cooler. It's just sort of one of the basic Intel ones, but it should do the job. So in order to actually get our power supply out of here, we're gonna have to remove the hard drive cage, the DVD drive that is in there as well. And that should really allow us to access every single cable that we need to undo. So pretty much every single screw is going to be using a Torx bit. So first we're going to remove these 3 black screws from the hard drive cage, and that will actually allow us to lift it completely up and out of the case. All we're going to do is sort of tilt and lift up, and there we have our hard drive. And now to remove our DVD drive, just to make access to the 24-pin cable down there a little bit easier. And in order to do that, there's a little tab over here where my finger is. I'm gonna push in on that, and then we can just push the DVD drive completely out. And to make it even easier, now that we have the hard drive cage out and the DVD drive out, I'm gonna pop off the front cover. In order to do that, we're just gonna lift these 3 tabs on the inside of the case. And then to actually remove that DVD drive cage, what we're gonna do is remove these 2 screws. And then we're just gonna need to remove this other bottom screw here. And this should let us completely remove the hard drive cage, or the DVD drive cage, from the front of the case, just like that. And now that we have the DVD drive cage removed, we can see all the space that we actually have in this case. And we will pull out our 24-pin motherboard connector. And there we go. So now we have our 24-pin connector out. Simple, pretty easy. And we'll just reach down inside of the top of the case and disconnect our 8-pin or our 4-pin CPU connector, just like that. And then we should just be able to undo it from the clip. And pretty simple. So now we have all of our power connections disconnected from the inside of the case and the motherboard. And with all of those power connections disconnected, we can just undo the 4 screws on the back of the power supply to actually pull the power supply completely out of the case. We should be able to bend it down a little bit and pull it out. So with our 180 watt power supply out of the case, we can now install our 500 watt thermal take. And in order to do this, we're actually gonna have to mount it with the fan pointing to the bottom of the case, which isn't gonna leave us a bunch of room for airflow, but there is about, I don't know, a centimeter gap there, which should be able to pull enough air to cool this power supply. We're definitely not gonna be pulling 500 watts with this system. So there we go, last screw in, and we have the 500 watt power supply in now. We got the 24-pin in there, and then the other one that we're gonna have to run now is our 4-pin CPU. We have that in there, and we'll just use the same sort of cable management tracks that the original one used, and just run this cable all the way at the bottom of the case, just out of the way. I decided to go ahead and turn the power supply the other way around just for some better airflow for the power supply. The other way, it just wasn't going to get enough air to actually cool the components. I was worried about it possibly overheating, so I turned it around. But now, as you can see, on the back of the case, we can't actually screw any of these in. There's no holes. The holes are only put in there for the other configuration. So, I mean, HP isn't expecting you to go ahead and put another power supply in here. So they're only set up for the one configuration. So what we're gonna do is just use some double stick 3M tape just to give it a better hold. So right now there's this little tab down here that will actually pretty much hold this in place. So it's not gonna go anywhere for the most part. It's pretty much stuck in there, but I just wanna throw some 3M tape in there just to make sure we're good, we're safe, and it's not gonna, for whatever reason, jumble around inside of our case. So we got the power supply taped in. It's not going anywhere now. So that is perfect. So what we're gonna do is now throw in our GTX 1660 Super, but let's just do a quick unboxing of the card. So we went with the Gigabyte Mini ITX version of the card, which is perfect for this case. So we get 3 display ports and 1 HDMI, so 4 video outputs from this card. A really nice looking design, just like the coolers, pretty nice looking. We get the single fan design, and this is what we will of course see from inside of the case. We do get a 8-pin power connector, and this 1660 Super should do really, really well in games. We will of course put that to the test, but let's first go ahead and get this guy installed. So now just doing a quick lineup over top of our computer case and the motherboard. I can definitely tell that we're gonna have some interferences with some of these cables. Our 24 pin is most likely going to be interfering a little bit, and I think I'm going to have to remove this one cable here, which should be for our SD card reader. So I'm just going to remove that, put it over to the side. It's going to interfere for sure with the cooler, but this HD audio should be quite good. We do have this nice little gap here at the front of the card, so that should be perfect. So I'm just going to remove the PCIe slot cover, and let's get this installed. So now you can kind of see what I'm talking about. We do have some interference with the 24 pin, and we're sort of going to be sitting on top of it, but that shouldn't really be an issue. But what I'm going to do is just throw a little bit of electrical tape on top of that like bottom right corner of our 24 pin, just in case we get some like random arcing to either the PCB or to the aluminum fin stack. So just to be safe, we're just going to throw this in right like that, and that should definitely be plenty for what we're going to actually interfere with. So we are installed into our PCIe slot, so that is looking really good there. So we got the graphics card in, power supply in. You can tell there's a bit of a small gap between the two, between the power supply and the card, and they will be fighting for air, but I think we should be fine, and we'll definitely do some testing, of course, to make sure our graphics temps are looking good. So now that we have everything in, we're gonna have to throw our DVD drive caddy back into the case, and we're gonna show you how tight the fit truly is in here. So now you can see that is a tight fit, but it does fit in there, and it's actually pretty darn perfect, if I don't say so myself. And before we pop this back in, we're gonna have to put our front cover back on. Pretty simple step right there. Gotta make sure it's lined up. Pop it into place, and we are good there. So now we can slide our DVD drive cover back into its home. We can just slide the DVD drive in, and you will see how close this actually is. There we go. So we are installed. We're actually clearing it by probably like 2-3 millimeters. So we probably didn't need the electrical tape, but just in case it is in there. So that is perfect. Got all our cables tucked away that we don't need. So we're pretty much set. The only thing left to do is actually hook up all our cables for our DVD drive, and then hook up our hard drive. There we go, we got our SATA installed. The next one will be our slimline power connector. So this will feed power from just a regular SATA to our DVD drive. And now we can put our hard drive cage in, and we are set with this computer. So now that we have the PC completely put together, we're gonna do the last thing, which is change out our single stick of DDR4 memory, which is an 8 gig stick for 2 sticks of 8 gigabyte HyperX Fury. This stuff comes in at 2666 megahertz. We're only going to be able to run it at 2400. BIOS is locked down on these HP computers, but that should be just fine. But at least we get to start running in dual channel, which should definitely be a performance improvement. So let's get these 2 sticks installed. What we're going to do is pop open our one RAM slot, pull out our old stick. This is just some Giel, looks like just some regular CL16 8 gig 2400 megahertz RAM. So we're just gonna swap that out with our new 2666. And of course, like any RAM swap, pretty simple. Just make sure your tabs are pushed back and then push down evenly on the RAM from both sides. Hear a little click, and we are all set. So now we have everything set up inside of here. We have our 500 watt Thermaltake power supply, our Gigabyte 1660 Super Mini, and then our 2 sticks of 16 gig, or 2 sticks of 8 gigabyte HyperX Fury memory coming in at 2666, but running at 2400 megahertz speed. So all together, we got our PC for 150 bucks, the power supply for 50, bringing the total up to 200. The 2 gigs, or the 2 sticks of RAM came in at 50 bucks also, bringing us up to 250. And our graphics card came in at 225, bringing the total amount for this entire build to $475. So now that we've the PC started up, let's hop into Task Manager and actually get a look at our components. So as you can see, CPU running at 3.3 gigahertz. Memory, we got our 16 gigs of RAM running at 2400 megahertz speed. And just quickly, our CPU is running on high performance mode. Then we have our GPU. Right now it's showing 40% utilization. That's just because I'm screen recording. And with NVENC turned on, all of that screen recording is taking place on the GPU. That's why our CPU is seeing such low utilization. But GPU looking good, looking really, really nice. And now let's hop into GeForce Experience just to take a look again, make sure all the components are showing up. Everything's looking good. We have the most up-to-date drivers, so we should be good there. But now you can see we have our GeForce GTX 1660 Super. All our components are 16 gigs RAM. You can see we're VR ready. We have NVIDIA Ansel. So everything is set up for us to go ahead and game. So as you can see, we are in Fortnite, and I'm using my camera to record this. I don't want to reduce any FPS by having screen recording running and stuff like that. So just sitting in the menu, I'll show you guys our settings, and then we'll hop into a game. So we're playing pretty much competitive settings, 1920 by 1080 unlimited FPS, brightness at 75%, doesn't really affect anything. And then we have epic view distance, medium and medium on shadows and anti-aliasing, and then low on textures, effects, and post-processing. And then we should have VSync off and motion blur off. So those are all our settings. So let's hop into a game of solos and see what kind of performance we see. So here we are in the game, and as you can see inside of the blimp, we're sitting at around 85 to 90 FPS. If we see some bottlenecking, it most likely will be when we jump out of the blimp. So as you can see, as soon as we jumped out, we dropped to like 60 FPS, but back up to around 90 as we are dropping in. We'll go to a less packed spot of the map just so that we can live a little bit longer and see exactly what FPS we will get. But as you can see, hitting 100% CPU utilization, 50 degrees on the CPU and 71 on the GPU, and only 40 to 50% utilization there, which is really, really good. And we're sitting at 1860 megahertz, almost 1900 megahertz on the GPU. So now on the ground, we're hitting 120, over 100 FPS pretty consistently. No real drops in FPS, no big major dips, so that is good so far. But we may see some, as we are using 100% of our CPU. We could potentially bottleneck the GPU just based on how much CPU utilization we are seeing. So if you are looking to play Fortnite with a system like this, with an older i5 and a GTX 1660 Super, you may not be seeing as much performance as you could possibly get out of the 1660 Super, but like in these sort of simple rooms, you're going to see over 170 FPS. So if you are gaming at 144 like I am here, then you can see plenty of performance. We're getting around 144 FPS right now, which is exactly what my monitor is. So we're taking full capability of the 144 hertz of a monitor if that is what you are using, and that gives us a really nice gaming experience. As you can see, really smooth, really, really nice. You'll only be viewing this video at around 60 FPS, but I can tell you, and as you can see from the FPS numbers, we are looking really, really, really good. So if you guys are looking to play Fortnite on a system like this, these are most likely the numbers you can expect. So hopefully this gives you guys a good idea about Fortnite gameplay on the HP Pavilion with our GTX 16 Super installed. So let's hop out of Fortnite and go into a slightly more demanding game, Call of Duty Warzone. So here we are inside of Call of Duty Warzone. So let's hop into the settings real quick so I can show you guys exactly what we are looking at there. So we're looking at full screen mode, 144 hertz on our screen refresh rate, and we're dropping our render resolution from 1440 down to 1080, just something I do in Call of Duty Warzone. Even on my 2070 Super, it just performs a little bit better at 1080. We then have texture resolution, texture filter, anisotropic to normal, particle quality to low, and we've turned tessellation to near, shadow map resolution normal, cache spots and sun shadows have been enabled, particle lighting low. So we're only using 3.5 gigs of our VRAM, so that is really, really good. So let's go ahead and hop into a solo game of Battle Royale, and let's see what kind of FPS we get. So getting ready to drop in on the Call of Duty Warzone map, and currently sitting at around 97% utilization or 90% utilization on our GPU, 95% on our CPU, dropping in megahertz from where we are in Fortnite to 1845 megahertz, and the GPU already at 82, 83 degrees, our CPU at 50 degrees. So GPU sitting a little bit warm, but nothing out of the ordinary, especially for one of these mini ITX GPUs where the cooling solution isn't that great. We're also dealing with a slightly closed off case, and as you remember, our GPU and our power supply are kind of fighting for air in that small gap. So not the best situation when it comes to cooling, but still we should see really, really good performance out of this card and this system. So dropping in 85 to 90 FPS, really, really impressive, I must say. And we're not seeing as much of a bottleneck from our CPU like we were seeing in Fortnite, which is really, really good. There's some guys up here. Let's go try to get into a quick battle, see what kind of FPS we see, but sticking really, really right around that 80 FPS mark, which is awesome. He went in that door. Not the greatest performance, but as you can see, right around 80 FPS, which is insane for this kind of system. Even my 2070 Super, right around 140 FPS most of the time, dropping down to like 130. So at 80 to 90 FPS on a 16 Super and an i5, which is seeing around 100% utilization. That is really, really good. Let's hop into a game of Valorant and see what kind of FPS we see in a lighter game that doesn't require so much from your system. So now we're in Valorant. So I'm gonna hop into our settings real quick. So we're playing at 2560 by 1440 in Valorant, and we have our FPS set to unlimited. Graphics quality, we're looking at medium, 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 medium. Vignetting and VSync off. Improved clarity, we don't really need that. Anisotropic filtering is set to 4x. So let's see what kind of performance we get at these settings. If we want, we can always turn these up in game. So let's get into a game and see what kind of performance we're getting. So here we are in game, sitting at 150 FPS, 160 FPS, 190. So just keep an eye on the FPS as we play a couple rounds, but we should see really, really good performance with this system. We're only seeing 80% utilization on the CPU, 40% on the GPU, and temps are looking amazing. CPU only at 45 degrees, GPU at 57, and our GPU is actually not even turboing that high, just not really needed in this game. We're just not stressing it that much. But we'll see what we get when we get into some action. So not the greatest performance from me, but still some really, really good FPS numbers in this game. 160. So you're going to see well over 144 FPS with medium settings. We'll go ahead and turn our video settings up. We'll turn the graphics quality up to high on everything and see what kind of performance we get now with all of those settings turned up to high. So now you can see our GPU boosting up to 1635, 1500. Utilization still staying low, but we're getting the same FPS numbers, which is really, really good. So now you can play this game at all high settings and get awesome FPS. So there we have it, guys. I am really, really impressed with the HP Pavilion 570. Super great performance for a nice budget. Coming in at $475. Like I said at the beginning, $150 for the system, $225 for the GPU, $50 for the RAM, and $50 for the power supply. And we're up and running. Games like Fortnite at 140 FPS, Warzone at 80 to 90 FPS, and games like Valorant at almost 200 FPS at 1440p for Valorant. So those are some amazing numbers for that budget. You're not going ahead and spending $700 on an NZXT starter PC. I will say the CPU is limiting us quite a bit. We are hitting 100% in pretty much every single title outside of Valorant. So that is definitely bottlenecking our GPU. but our GPU is holding up really, really nicely and outputting a lot of frames, which is great. Of course, being that we are in this smaller, somewhat constrained HP case, temps are a little bit high on our GPU, but nothing out of the ordinary, and it should be fine long term. But I will definitely keep you guys updated on this system. I am really, really impressed with it so far, but I plan on turning this sort of into a home theater PC or a multimedia PC where you can game on it. You can sit on the couch and game. You can throw in a DVD and watch a movie, or you can just bring up Netflix and stuff like that. So that is really the goal of this system. It's small form factor. It's an ITX case, which is awesome, and it's super compact in there. So I'm, again, really impressed with this build. Hopefully you guys are as well. If you have one of these systems lying around in the house, or you're finding one on eBay or some other site and you want to turn it into a gaming PC, hopefully this video helped you out a little bit. Or if you have a similar system, maybe it's a Dell or a Lenovo or some other system, definitely look into the GTX 1660 Super to upgrade that system into a gaming PC and see these kinds of FPS numbers. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys learned something. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. Any questions, any comments about this build or upgrade, definitely leave those below, and I will try my best to answer as many as I can. And like I said at the beginning of the video, definitely hit that subscribe button if you want more videos just like this. So I'll see you guys in the next one.